variation 21. This variation is about flying staccato. I made a video on staccato, both flying staccato and staccato on the string, explaining the difference between the two. It's number 16 in my bow technique playlist and it's on variation 14 if you'd like to check it out. The reason the variation on flying staccato comes straight after the Ricochet variation is because they're actually related. The main difference is that Ricochet is a completely passive bowing, and in flying staccato you give a couple of impulses, small impulses. So Ricochet basically is this. You don't do anything, and with flying staccato, usually up bow, you give small impulses, and that way you can keep going longer. That's actually the main difference between the two. A good preparatory exercise for flying staccato is to exaggerate these impulses by staying in the same place. That would be this. I'll show you a little closer. What I'm doing, once again, it's this movement. That's why it's so important. And you drop the bow and the bow comes back up again on its own. And then you do a small circular motion to stay in the same place. I'll do it slowly. And then you try to speed it up a little bit. And then when you speed it up even more, it becomes more passive because the bow does most of it on its own. You're just making sure you're staying in the same place of the bow. That helps a lot for flying staccato because flying staccato is then basically the movement is the same for the impulses you give. It's just smaller because you're allowing the bow to travel. So if you're staying in one place, you have this. And if you travel, you have this. It's very, very small. So a good way of practicing this is to practice staying in one place. Practice it on one note and then practice it in scales. To get used to this impulse. Now when I first start practicing this variation, the first thing I do is I practice just for the left hand. Once again, we're dealing with 6 flats and you need to secure the left hand so that you can concentrate on what the right hand is supposed to do. So what I do is I practice it very slowly. I practice all the string crossings and double stops for intonation and to secure my hand position. So basically, it's something like this. When I play this slowly, I do the staccato on the string because it's too slow for flying staccato to work. So very slowly, string crossings and double stops. That's hard. Practice that a lot. Now when you get to the fifths in bar 9, make sure that you practice them as double stops, as fifths, so that your finger gets used to being on both strings, because you won't get a legato slur if you don't have your finger on both strings. So that's the... And now my favorite. I spent a lot of time practicing this variation this way because that many flats is just not fun. Now when I start practicing this variation with the flying staccato, there are a few points to bear in mind. First of all, what I usually do is same as in the preparatory exercises, I start off with staying in one note and then let the bow travel. I found that very helpful. So what I do is travel. Stay on one place and then travel. I found that very helpful because staying in one place is actually the more difficult bowing, and it's kind of like a relief when you let your bow allow your bow to travel. So I found that very helpful. The other thing is don't lift your bow before the first staccato note, but afterwards. So that transition has to be on the string, and then you lift the bow. So don't lift the bow before you've played the first staccato note. The next important thing is bow division. Basically, I would not recommend to play this with the whole bow. It simply doesn't work. I use the second quarter and third quarter of the bow. So for the beginning, basically the first 8 bars, which are supposed to be mezzo forte, I'm somewhere between here and here. So that's the part for mezzo forte. The first 2 eighth notes get twice as much bow as the next 8 notes. So they don't get a lot louder than the following ones. You need a high speed of bow with not much weight. And then the following 8 notes, which get less bow, obviously have less of a speed of bow, and you need a little more weight so that they're not a lot softer than the first 2 eighth notes. So that will be something like this. I'll show you slowly. That brings me back to where I started. Now, as from bar 9, you're supposed to play forte. So what I do is I go a little bit further to the frog, because the bow is heavier, to get the forte. Now here, I don't travel all the way back to the frog because the following bar is pianissimo, and I'm supposed to do that just in the middle with very little bow. So I stay there so that I'm in the middle, and then I can play pianissimo. So you need very little bow for the part which is in pianissimo. Okay, hope you enjoyed that.